Right now we are having 93 participants. I think we can start Abhay.
Okay, so a very good morning to everyone to this webinar on business continuity plans and how we can survive this COVID, specifically for MSME and SMEs, and also looking at how startups can be supported. So for today's webinar, looking at the current situation where all of us are struggling because of COVID and the businesses are facing manifold challenges and its continuity is on top priority for most of us. How do we deal with that? What should be our customer engagement and attention model to keep our business rolling? What should be the approach in terms of identifying new high growth business opportunities presently and also post-COVID? How do we deal with those? So we'll touch on these points and in today's webinar. So before we start this, I would request all of you to adhere to some house rules. One is that if you have any queries while the presentation is made by the expert, I would request you to park these in the chat box that we have over here. So we'll take those up at the end of this presentation and we'll have an exclusive 15 minutes parked for questions and answers. We'll try and address those there. Let me also introduce you to the speaker that we have today. So Mr. Mutreja has been a mentor to few of our programs under FICCI CTech and also is a member of FICCI Startup Committee. He's a mechanical engineer by degree from IIT Kanpur and have also done post-graduation in business management from IIM Ahmedabad. He has also served as the industry advisor to the government of Bhutan, in his quite early years of his career. Over the last 4 years, he has also supported many Indian government bodies, institutions, and provided them with some very real prudent advisories. He also serves on various incubators, accelerator boards. He's a mentor to IBAC program, which we FICCI run in Kolkata, West Bengal. He is also engaging with various venture capital funds, education institutes, startups, and advising them on various strategy inputs. He's a mentor to many programs. He serves as jury. He's an investment expert, think tank, and also does handhold to virtual partners as well. So we could not find anybody more apt than him to speak about this particular topic today. And we hope that his insights on what he's going to share is going to be very useful for the SMEs and startups who are attending today's session. We also have Ms. Mosmi Ghosh, who is also from FICCI, and she's the Assistant Secretary General and Head of FICCI West Bengal State Council on this webinar. And I was told by SME Government of India that Director Mr. O.P. Mehta has also joined us for this webinar. A very warm welcome to you, sir, as well. May I request Mosmi ma'am to formally welcome Mr. Mutreja to start his presentation.
Yes, hello.
Yes, we can hear you, ma'am.
Yes, okay. Yes, good morning, Mr. Mutreja. We are very happy to have you on the panel. We have seen now, we started this project in last August. And I think as we enter the first, we completed about a year. We hit a little bit of a roadblock because of the corona, but you have been, I think, in the loop, and we are very happy to have you as a mentor also. And we were, the government is quite happy to have this program on board. The only issue was that we need to have a little bit of a scale up, and as we move along, we'll try to engage with more and more people, and we'll keep you posted, and we'll take your guidance from time to time. Now I'd like you to speak, please, and mentor the IBAC cohorts and a lot of other people as well for the startup community.
Thank you very much, Mosmi and Abhay, as well as Sujay. It's a pleasure for me to share some of my learnings. I'm going to upload my presentation. Just give me a second. Yeah, that's right. Okay, so I hope you can see my presentation.
Yes, yes. Yes, we can see.
Okay.
We can see the presentation.
So thank you for the introduction both of you given. I also wanted to share that I have worked in Calcutta. I used to be with Metalbox from 1981 to early 1985. So I'm going to even share my case studies and experiences of Metalbox days, how I managed in the adversity when there were some problems in our Metalbox factory in Hyde Road and what we did in the Kharagpur plant of Metalbox. So I'm going to talk about that, relevant to you. So today I've decided to spend approximately 5 minutes on the background, approximately 10 to 12 minutes on high growth business opportunities. And as many of you wanted to gain some understanding and insights from how we can engage with customers, how we can retain them, how we can even reactivate some of our past customers, and how we can acquire new customers through a discovery process. And before that, I will talk a little bit about what is the entire business development process and how we can make it much more adaptable for today's needs. And the last 10 minutes or less, I will talk about maintaining cash in business continuity, because I'm sure by now you would have heard this from many people. So I'm not going to spend extraordinary amount of time. So we all know Corona arrived uninvited in our life. It's disrupted our life uncomfortably. But instead of looking at negative of it, let's plan and prepare for life with Corona. We all know this is going to stay with us for a long period of time. It's like air, water, pollution. We have to accept this reality for a long period of time. So we need to now adapt ourselves. We need to build resilience in preparation for the new normal, which is what we need to look at. So my presentation is going to be partially aspirational, partially motivational, and telling you what can you do differently in order to grow your business. So it's really the right time in the last approximately 34 days that you have spent at home. You've realized that there are many things you can do in today's world, which
Amandeep, is there any problem?
Sir, there is no problem, sir. I think he...
Mr. Mutreja, are you there?
Sir, he is not there, sir. He is not there. Sir, sir, please contact him, sir.
Yeah, sure.
Sir, just put yourself on mute, sir. Yeah, Ajay, sir. Yes, sir. Ajay, sir, you can, yeah.
Okay, can I share my content again? No, I cannot. I cannot load my content.
Sir, just check right now.
Okay, yeah, it's just coming. It's coming. I'm so sorry. Okay, so I'm just going to go back quickly to, sorry about the discontinuity. So this is really the time for you to reinvent, recreate, and transform your personal and social life and business profession, business as well as your professional life if you need to, because we all know the reality is that we have to now adapt to the new world. We have to act, and in this act means try and accept the reality and be committed to the future and adapt. In the last approximately 35 days, we have all learned how to do more with less. Many of us have been able to be productive from home unless we are in the manufacturing industry. So now this is really the ideal time for you to look at new opportunities. And I'm now going to talk about what new opportunities exist for you in today's world, and we all can take advantage of it. As our minister, Mr. Nitin Gadkari has been talking, and we all know the reality that many international companies who have been doing business with China are wanting to reduce their business. There are many products. India has realized that we need to do localization and import substitution in India. So I see plenty of opportunities. I can count at least 100 opportunities that exist today for all of you to start exploring in partnering with others. So whether you do cross-border strategic collaborations or technology partnerships, or whether you look at cross interstate partnerships with, let's say, with state of Gujarat, SMEs from state of Gujarat, or SMEs from Tamil Nadu to partnership for manufacturing those products which India needs. We all realize that for personal protection equipment, we do not have the special raw material in our country, which we've been importing from China. For many of our pharmaceutical products, we've been importing our active pharmaceutical ingredients from China. So we need to look at import substitution products, and it doesn't have to be only made in China products. It can be made in any part of the world. India has opportunity to now take advantage of the present situation and look at globalization, which is global best products made in India with local talent and localized manufacturing. And I know, according to what I heard from Mr. Nitin Gadkari, there is a lot of incentives that are going to be provided, especially to MSMEs to produce this, and also to the corporates. Everything that China was exporting, India was not able to compete. Today, Vietnam is taking advantage of some of that vacuum which is being created by China. And going forward in the next 6 months to 1 year, there is going to be more opportunities that India can look at. So it is not just manufacturing in India for Indian market, but manufacturing in India for export market. And there cannot be a better time than today for each of you to explore what can you do, either as a manufacturer of finished product or becoming a tier 1 vendor or a partner, even to just look at export agencies for selling of those products. And then there are many high growth business opportunities and industry segments which have now emerged. And I'm going to talk about these. They are very fast changing consumer behavior and disruption. For example, many of us will not now like to go to buy products in a grocery store if we have an option, because we are used to getting relatively touchless or products that can be delivered to our home. So there are many such opportunities that, and we have also realized that working from home, we've been able to be more productive with certain specialty tools that were available. So what can we do now? How can we come to these high growth opportunities? The first thing we need to do is to change our mindset. We need to have a very innovative approach for building strong foundations. How do we do that? Within our own organization, we will find there is a lot of creativity within our entire stakeholders. So whether it is your vendors, your ex-employees, your customers, and even your competitors and some of your mentors and experts that are there, can you try and pool their talent? Can you try and do mining of their talent? Can you try and even help them to upskill and cross-skill of all your core team members and try and look at multitasking capabilities in order to once again build your business? Assume your business has come down to ashes. So what? If you have the experience, you have the know-how, you have the technology, you have the energy, you have the fire in the belly, you can easily build your business again by creativity, by these innovative approaches. Going forward, the entire world has to learn digital linkages for your business. So if you have not learned it, this is the best time for you to learn. And there are many opportunities and many people are there to help you in this business. And collaborations, which is something which many of us have not understood, but now the entire world has to work together. Everyone has to work with each other. You have to create unconventional partnerships. For example, Post Office in the last few days has become a partner to deliver ATM money to the households. Can we look at partnering with even people who are not just complementary, but direct competitors to us? And the most important thing I wanted to talk about is my last bullet point on this slide, which is, can we try and build innovative Private sector, partnerships with startups. I know many of you who are listening to me today are either from MSMEs or are startups. And it doesn't matter. You can also build private sector partnerships with corporates. I have understood that in today's world, nobody can succeed unless you help each other. So it's sometimes you scratch my back and I scratch yours, but now you have to look at collaborations with your enemies, with your competitors. And startups have to learn from each other. And can we try and make a pool of startups? Can we make a mini cluster of startups? And then we can build the businesses rather than doing alone. I'm now going to cover approximately 25 high growth opportunities. Some of these are known to you. And these are now going to become not just a few billion, but some of them are $500 billion opportunities. We all know that EdTech, educational technology, is now going to be the future. Many students who were not lucky to get admission in the Ivy League or best institutions in this country are all going to be able to learn online education. You can, even as a school student, you can get the best teacher in the world to teach you online. And this is all going to be affordable. Going forward, online education is going to become extremely important. You also need offline, you need human touch, you need interaction. So it will be a combination of an online and offline education, whether it is for degrees or whether it is for diplomas or whether it is for certification programs or whether it is for reskilling, whether it is for preparation for exams, job interviews, and even soft skills will all be gradually all on going into online education. I see this opportunity in India to grow to a $500 billion in the next 1 or 2 years. Plenty of money is available from venture capital funds, angel investments, and other investors in this area. If you cannot directly get into this area, look at how do you partner with someone who's already in this area. There's a lot of new technology activities that are evolving around this, including artificial intelligence and data analytics and computer skills are required, which you need to see how do you participate in this. In the last 1.5 months, India's telecom services have luckily worked well, and many of them are going to continue to grow. Sure, there is the major two players, Jio and Airtel, but there are others who will be able to provide support services, whether it's hardware support services, and same for broadband services. And e-commerce is something which I don't know how many of you know that India has only 5% of our entire total sales from business to consumer, or from business to business, or from even business to government or other consumer to consumer. Less than 5% of few $1 trillion worth of business in India, commerce that is done in India, within India, is done on electronic media through digital media. This is likely to grow to a 20%. So I'm looking at $1 trillion business opportunity in the e-commerce sector for many of you to participate. And for you to get into this business, depending on what your ability is, you can look at capital light opportunities to get in with very low investments. All that you need is right partners. And if you can't do it alone, make a group of SMEs, make a mini cluster, build up some economies of scale and enter in this business. In the last few months, we have all lived with less, but we have still always bought our requirements of fast moving consumer good items, whether these are fresh fruits and vegetables, whether these are products which are required on packaged food, whether these are grocery items, cereals. So this is something which will never go away. You need to now look at how do you make these products available at more affordable cost, and maybe to ensure that there is a tracing of everything. People who can afford, they would like to know whether these products have not been contaminated, they have less toxicity, there is less inorganic inputs in this, etc. And then contactless deliveries has become now a very important thing in some of the major cities and towns of our country, and it's going to grow. Not too many people are ready. There is a demand-supply gap. As I see, there is much more demand, growing at almost 100% to 200% month on month on the contactless delivery. And can you get into this area by ensuring, and the reputation of the company, the reputation of the organization, and how they ensure is critical. The other area, which is the right-hand side bucket, is everything revolving around healthcare. So pharmaceutical sector, whether it is pharmaceutical products, drugs, these are generic or whether these are prescribed medicines, biotechnology, including vaccines, these are all $1 trillion economy. I mean, India, as you all know, suddenly got a request for hydrochloroquine, and we supplied, and many of those pharmaceutical companies who promised to deliver them have been able to make a high amount of profits, and their shareholding, their market price of the shares even zoomed in spite of the fact that the Sensex was coming down, Nifty was coming down. Medical diagnostic laboratories are now going to be spreading through franchise models. It's not just the brand names of Dr. Lal Pathological or Dr. Dang or many others. It's going to be many more. So there will be franchise options available. There'll be medical diagnostic standalone labs, and they are going to be in plenty, because we have to realize we have to live with not just only Corona, we have to live with many other viruses which will be coming. It's something that will going to be like our hand, our air and water around us. Similarly, we should look at medical equipment and devices. Suddenly there was a huge demand for anything to do with ventilators, but there are so many other equipment, so many other devices that India has been importing, and there is a very high price premium on those products with import duty added onto it. We have to look at how do we make them in India. Medical disposables, including masks and gloves and other personal protection equipment, will be a reality, and there'll be a high growth. Healthcare services, whether these are providing paramedical support, whether these are providing nurses, whether these are providing support to doctors and even doctors, this is a huge opportunity and will continue to grow. India, unfortunately, has a very low number of doctors and nurses available to the population we have. Many other hygiene products, not just sanitizers, will now be in high demand. And India had just started recently the telemedicine and the remote healthcare services in view of the fact that we have very poor healthcare facilities in our country and very few good doctors available. This telemedicine and remote healthcare services business is going to grow phenomenally as we go forward. I'm going to talk about another set of high growth opportunities, and these are in other areas. So whether these are productivity tools, for WFH stands for work from home. Zoom is just one, WebEx is just another. There are so many other productivity tools, whether it is for people who are working from home, getting signing off in their attendance, they're having one-to-one meeting with their team members or having one-to-many meetings. They are looking at how to improve their productivity level. And I know many people who are actually working now 12 hours a day, whether in the financial services sector, by using these productivity tools. And they are saying they don't have any time wasted as in the office. Forget about the commuting time, which is lost. But even in the office, there are so many times we just sit with somebody and gossip. So those productivity tools will help you to now get higher efficiency out of your team members. Cybersecurity is a new area which has been there, but India has still not yet been able to control this with Indian cybersecurity norms. And this is going to be a high growth opportunity. We all have been using various kinds of social networking, whether it's Facebook or Twitter or even WhatsApp. This is now going to continue to grow. And for this, obviously very smartly, the Facebook has done joint venture partnership by acquiring 9.9% equity in Jio. And their whole goal is not just social networking on the WhatsApp to be controlled through this, but to do business with people. And many of the Kirana shops, many of the mom and pop retailers will now be supported by Jio, Facebook together to become digitized and help them grow the business. So India is going to transform substantially with these new productivity tools, new social networking, new remote meeting services and video conferencing apps that we have today, and new collaborative tools. And all these technology tools is going to be reality. It is a fact that even a person who has not gone to school knows how to use WhatsApp in this country. So you don't need education. It's a matter of 1 hour or 2 hours of training to give everyone to get adapted to these new tools. Many people I know who are performing their yogas or even having their Buddhism classes are people of the age profile of 70 and above, and they all use these conferencing apps and collaborative tools today. Business to business cloud services have already been there in India, but it's going to now accelerate on the growth. Cloud entertainment, especially personalized digital channels, all that will be now picking up. So everything you see on the left here are all technology tools revolving around utilization of new technologies that India is going to see growth rate. Each of them are at least anywhere between $100 billion to a $500 billion opportunities. And now I'm going on the right-hand side to see waste management. India has suddenly now realized that waste has not been segregated. We have always been mixing even radioactive waste from medical X-ray machines or even other equipment. We have been mixing nuclear waste, and we are mixing all the electronics and PCB waste components along with the organic and inorganic, and even paper and cartons and food waste. How do you manage this waste? It's a big challenge. Sure, there'll be economies of scale required. So some SMEs can play a role by, again, carteling, bundling up, partnering approach to solve these problems, initially in some residential societies, then in some hospital waste to be managed. Logistics services in the last 1 year has grown in this country, but believe me, we have no economies of scale. There is not a single logistic service company in India which is even equal to one of the top 10 of China or United States. And hence many of these logistic service companies have idle capacity, so we need to look at carteling, bundling up approach. So like any other situation, there will be not just collaborations, but there will be some collaborative efforts in one sense, but some companies will vanish, others will buy them out, or they'll merge as we go forward. There is a high demand for high nutrition food ingredients. We have all realized eating at home, healthy food, nutritious food is what is helping a lot of us. Many of us who have been having other ailments have luckily not had those ailments in the last 30-35 days, whether it is ailments linked to bad quality of junk food that we were eating. So it's not just people staying at home. Now people who will be going to office or working from other locations will also start looking at how to get organic fruits and vegetables or high nutrition food ingredients. So these are opportunities. Health insurance has obviously become important. In the last 30 days, I've received at least 10 phone calls for various insurance companies to offer specifically focused on COVID-19, but health insurance is something which India, less than 10% population has health insurance, and going forward, it may grow to 20% very soon. Renewable energy is now going to become much more important. Government will give more so I think we should look at some of these opportunities. And now coming to how can we do it? And I'm now going more into motivational conversation. Let's look at change in attitude and mindset. The first thing we need to do is you should believe that you can do it. So try and overcome your own challenge of self-doubt. And most of us have these doubt about we can't do it because somebody has either inflicted this to us or we have inflicted ourselves. And these are very incredibly infectious diseases that we should get out with. So first, be clear, I can do it. Let's change my mindset and I will do it. So true success will now start with this positive attitude and self-belief. And we all know that to win in any marathon, you don't have to give up. You have to go slowly and you have to learn from the failures and mistakes of others. Don't try and make too many mistakes and fall on the way. So learn from failures and mistakes of others, and that information is available in plenty. All my life, I have done nothing but told every international customer or Indian customer what not to do. So it's easier for us to avoid reinventing and learn from others, and partnering is the way to go forward. So once you make up your mind that you can do these you can enter some of these new opportunities, focus on your goals with the bulldozer mindset, and try and avoid any diversion, and never give up. Hard work is the key for you. Nothing is going to be handed to me in life. The best thing for you to do, we all know that butterfly does not come out of the cocoon from pupa, does not come out till it works hard to flap and come out of it. So we have to make sure each of us have to work hard to earn it. We can work in partnership models, so we can work together so that we all win together. And there is a high opportunity that everyone can see in front of us today. And there has been no better time than this to cash on some of these opportunities. And there's no overnight success. So you have to be committed. You have to have tenacity and passion and devotion. And I would now talk about other things. You have to now look at the new world. The new world cannot be done sitting in isolation. There is no point thinking that if I just focus only on what I know about, of a few people I know, start talking to many others, listen and learn from each of your stakeholders. The best stakeholders for you are, first, if you have your own employees, present employees, former employees, people who've left you. Talk to your vendors, if possible, even talk to some of the customers of vendors. Talk to your competitors, and they could be, so the customers of your vendors could be your competitors. Talk to your banks, talk to your collaborators if you have any, and talk to investors and your existing customers and past customers whom you have lost. Talk to some potential customers who were in your pipeline and you've not been able to build it, and make a network of industry experts and mentors, and they're available easily because they have the time today. And network today, that's the best thing for you to do. Try and make a promise to yourself, I'll try and network with 5 new people every day going forward and learn from them and try and collaborate. And then you as best leader will be able to work together to win. I'm now moving to my second module, which is where I was told is of high interest. And I'm going to cover first 2 minutes on business development, and then with a lot of case studies on customer engagement, retention, reactivation, and discovery. I'm going to share some of my insights. So first, I'll explain to you what is a business development discipline. These are the 5 bullets that I have learned in my life. If you're not disciplined to focus on leads is pipeline, generation of new potential customers. They could be C category to start with, they become B or then A, and then you have to convert them. What is your conversion ratio of leads to customers? What is the number of transactions each of those customers are doing? How many times are they placing order if they are a consumer, if they're buying B2C, if they are a B2B, have you got repeat orders from them? What is the average sale you have made to each customer? Sometimes you have to do a foot in the door in a business to business relationship. And what is your margin rate of your product or service that you've sold to them? So multiplying your average sale to each customer with margin rate multiplied by number of transactions by each customer will be able to give you your total profit margin, and that becomes your net profit. So how do you improve your efficiency in each of the above categories? The best way to do is to look at, can you improve your number of leads? Can you improve your number of percentage of conversion ratio by even continuously? And sometimes you have to work on this business development discipline on a weekly basis, on a fortnightly basis. So even if you make a 1%, 2% increase on a weekly basis on your number of leads, and if you do 1% increase on your conversion ratio to customers on a fortnightly basis, and same on number of transactions, average sale, you can improve with the efficiency improvement, you can make your profits grow by 60% in 1 year. So how to build the other second focus that you must have in your life is, don't try and build only customers. Don't try and only delight them and make them happy. Always make them successful and build partnerships for long-term, lifetime customers. And this can only be done through an excellence of your combination of customer service other than sales and marketing. Now, I'll talk about a few examples also. And the first thing that I learned in my life after spending 35 years in the corporate world, I realized that customer engagement, retention, reactivation, and discovery, the most important insight is conversation path has to start always with a compelling storytelling. Nobody is going to listen to you unless you have some interesting story which is touching across the touch points from awareness to final decision making or purchase. So let me tell you a few stories, and I'll start with my first story. When I was 21-year-old, I used to work for Larsen & Toubro, L&T, and I used to directly work with the person who later became the chairman, and he's still the non-executive chairman. Mr. A.M. Nayak was my boss. And while first day he asked me to work on a plant for 16 hours, we were making nuclear reactor for India's Bhabha Atomic Research Center. After a month, I met Mr. Hawk Larsen, the chairman of the company, and I said, I would like to see whether I know how to sell. And he said, okay, you can try and sell the most expensive new product L&T is launching in India, which is hydraulic excavator made by, it's a French technology partnership, Poquelin. Go and sell an L&T Poquelin hydraulic excavator. So I came to meet a company which is called JP Group now. Earlier, Jayaprakash Associates was what the name was. And they were building, they had a contract from Bhakra Nangal Dam. I came to meet him 6 times and he did not give me an appointment for the first 5 times. And I became friendly with his assistants, his secretary, and finally asked for a cup of tea meeting with him, which helped me to get the first contract of 75 lakh rupees in 1978 from JP. So lesson that I learned was that, and obviously I went and told them a lot of stories that I'd learned from my first 5 meetings with other people in the company. I'll talk about another experience of mine in Metalbox. When I joined Metalbox in Calcutta in 1981 at Hyde Road, we had also set up a plant of Metalbox in Kharagpur to make ball bearings and taper roller bearings and cylinder. And these, when the plant was planned to be set up, India was not allowing imports of bearings from anywhere in the world. But after that, and there were very high custom duty for imports with special permissions for import. But when the plant started production, India allowed these products and brought them into called OGL category. And at that point of time, my chairman of the company came to me and said, why can't we do something with this plant? Because it's a white elephant lying in Kharagpur. And we also had at Hyde Road, a machine building factory, which had many CNC machines, and we didn't have too many orders. So I decided to bring business from organizations by using what I call customer engagement with people who were never customers. So I found that USSR and India had a special partnerships, and they were buying turnkey plants, not for payment of any payment made to India. It was a bilateral grant. They were supplying arms and ammunitions to India, and in return, they were wanting India to export certain products. So I started finding inroads into how I can get into USSR market. And I found organizations where they wanted pharmaceutical turnkey lines. Now, Metalbox was only in packaging machinery. And so I managed to get a partnership with organizations like CADMAC in Ahmedabad. They were buying in USSR dairy lines, food processing lines. So I partnered with a company called Mathur & Plart. And I went 16 times to various people just to beg them to give me an inroads into that organization. And then once the door opened, there was no dearth of business flowing. And similarly for our Kharagpur factory and for our Hyde Road plant, when the machines were lying idle, we didn't know what to do. So I checked up with Maruti factory in Gurgaon and discovered they were setting up a new plant here. And we said, can I do something for your company? And I met Mr. Bhargav, who was very much there, who's still the non-executive chairman or executive chairman of the company today. And also met Mr. Mathur, and I told him, can I help your company make something? And he said, do you want to make some rollers for our conveyor belts? And I said, okay, I'll try. And same I did for Bhilai steel plant and Rourkela steel plant, and got the business. So business is not difficult to get if you engage with people. I'll now move on to my experience of working for multinationals after my experience in Kingdom of Bhutan, where I was there for from 1985 to 87, directly working with the Minister of Industry, Trade, Power, and Mines. When I moved on to consulting world of strategy advisory, around the world, I used to deal with clients who were who's who. So once I sought for an appointment with Mr. Warren Buffett, and I was told you have to pay money to meet him. So I said, I'll try. I'll not pay any money. And I landed up in his house in Omaha by using some connections, had breakfast with him, and business started flowing for us. Similarly, when there were economic downturn in 2008, everyone in my company suddenly realized that majority of the international clients whom we were helping to bring to India had decided to go halt on India. And majority of our long-term key clients decided to stop their business in India. We said, let's pivot. Let's look at those markets which are cash rich. So we started getting business from Middle East countries. And then I said, let's look at new sectors. So some of the new sectors we started working on were nuclear. Nobody could even dream of. So one new client who wanted to just get involved with the nuclear power plant in our country gave us business equal to our 50% of the value of the business that we had lost. So there is no dearth. And I'll talk about how do you make stories. So one of our companies in Columbus, Ohio called Borden Chemicals, I met them for the first time in 1997. And I went for a meeting with the decision maker who gave me 45 minutes of his time, who was a CXO of the company. And then I entered, he said, do you know Bhagavad Gita? And I said, yes. So I was very surprised this American wants to discuss. So I talked a little bit and he kept asking me more and more questions, and exactly 45 minutes passed with no discussion on business. And suddenly he said, Mr. Mutreja, thank you very much for your time. Goodbye. So I got zapped. I mean, I'd come all the way to Columbus, Ohio to meet this guy. Okay, I'd gone for business to other parts of US also. So I was coming out. When I came to the elevator, he came to see me off. He pushed the button for me on the elevator and said, by the way, you must have come to discuss with me some business of India. Whatever you wanted to sell me, don't worry, just send me the agreement, I'll sign. So it's a trust quotient that was created in that 45 minutes. So people do business with people whom they trust. I'll give you one more example of how you sometimes have to be literally persistent to do business. One of my clients was Kohler. So I used to go to Wisconsin, to Milwaukee, near Milwaukee, to a place called Kohler, to meet Mr. David Kohler and his family members and also his key executives. So we managed to go. He gave me 20 minutes of his time to do business with him, which I got. And then every time I used to go to US, I used to send a mail to him or call up his secretary and say, I'm coming for a cup of tea. And he used to say, but there's no agenda. I said, no, I just want to have a brief chat with him. I went and met him 17 times in my professional career. And I got more than 17 contracts because every time I got there and we were talking on subjects, we got business. So lessons that I'm saying is, in today's world, unless you talk to your clients frequently, you will not get business. So I'm now going to just share a few of my insights from the stories that I've talked about. So memorable customer experience needs to be personalized. Demonstrate that you understand customers' specific needs and be ready to adapt customer experience that are genuinely different. Stop imitating and start innovating. Let your customer know that you can genuinely understand what it is like to be in their shoes. So it's empathy, which is equally important. Then other insights that I would like to talk about is build strong foundation of trust and relationship with the decision makers and also with the influencers of the customer. Never underestimate the importance of the person who opens the door for you to enter your customer decision maker's office, whether the secretary or in a peon in India. Make friendships with them and they'll help you a lot. I have taken a lot of advantage all through my professional life by talking to the secretaries politely and making them friends. The first question I would always ask them is, tell me about your family. Which American lady would talk about the family to a stranger? Only when they build some trust with you. Similarly, whether it's a man or a woman, you have to make friendship on creation of those trust. Always delight your customer by exceeding their expectations, not by only just smiles, or always under promise and over deliver. This, what I put on bold, is something that will always help you in your life. And then try and listen to the customers, including what he's not saying. Extract insights from the mind if you can. Be a good mind reader and look at the body language and closely evaluate what customer actually want. Start innovation initiatives with first outside-in approach that frames customers' business challenges and unmet needs. Do your homework. You try and go with something exciting, but don't try and sell that exciting thing. First, listen to the customers because there may be something more exciting to have. Always create your emotional connect with the customer. Urgently resolve any negative feedback or mistake by your organization with a sincere apology. I've had many, many negative feedback. Big companies, chairman of Schindler, Switzerland, or large American giants like Amcol have had some problems with us, but with one sincere apology and resolving that negative feedback immediately, I've been able to revive the confidence again. Great customer experience is competitive advantage that can be earned with continuous improvement cycle. Now I'll move to the last part of my presentation. I'll go rapidly. We are at 12:18 now, so I'll take 5 minutes. Most of you would have heard this out from others, so I'm not going to bore you. So business continuity is defined by these parameters. First, to ensure continuity of operations, you have to look at continuity if you have a factory, continuity of your plant and machinery. If you have an office, your office, what to do with it. You have to look at your employees, you have to look at your customers, you have to look at your supply chain, you have to look at your operational and communication risk. You have to see whether your employees will come back if they have gone to the hometowns. Are they safe? Is your factory going to be ready with the basic fundamental emergency measures, including sanitization that you may need to do, and plan for recovery now. First thing you need to do is to focus on your people. People safety and continuous engagement is #1 priority. You have to also prioritize your existing customers. Maybe those customers are not interested in buying from you. They may not even have the money to buy. So why do you want to waste your time look at continuity of engagement with those past customers, or look at new customers, or even try and work new commercial engagements if you can. Evaluate your own internal financial stress on restarting, including your cash. If you don't have enough cash in bank, working capital limit enhancements are possible. You can try and look at all your past debt burdens on bank and third-party borrowings and capex, and try and evaluate your risk of supply chain, labor availability. Focus on your revenue, which you're sure to get, and there may be zero that's sure to come now. So don't worry. There are many ways to grow your business by having a combined collaborative effort, by pooling your team of people and looking at their skills, and trying be effective communicator. Never be dishonest at this point of time or ever. Follow your basic core values of ethics, honesty, sincerity, and compassion. The world will not move forward. Do not touch your people who are not able to survive. Try and make salary cuts or deferment of salaries or replacing salaries with stock options for people who are senior in the organization. Try and support everyone and they will be loyal to you forever. So you need to make some rapid action on each of the above to reshape your. So let me look at your formula for survival. So at this point of time, you have to assess what is the new circumstances, both externally and internally. And you need to look at what are the existing and high growth new opportunities, which are low hanging fruit for you to combine your knowledge, experience, and technology. And can you quickly act with urgency to pivot? Can you change your business? Can you partially change your business? Can you restructure your company? Don't downsize your company. Look at how do you thrive after survival. First, manage to survive. If you're a startup, don't worry. There are many ways to grow in this business. All that you need to do is to change your mindset and don't be married with your idea forever. Key is speed of your time to make these changes. So what are the external assessment you need to do? I've already talked some of them. Look at your demand side impact, that is on the near term and midterm. What is the health of your current target market and markets? Contact your large existing customers to get understanding of the magnitude of their likely sales shortfall. Are they going to be able to continue the business? Do they have the money to continue? Will they be able to get loans? Will they get some money from SIDBI to manage the growth of the business? Gauge whether each of your customer is in a position to buy from you now, and if yes, at what price and at what commercial terms. Similarly, on supply side, call each of your vendor and can they start supplies and when, and the cash. On the internal side of the business, you need to look at your liquidity and operating numbers. You have to look at your accounts receivable. Will that money come, which is accounts receivable for you, accounts payable. You need to look at sales pipeline forecast. Everything that you had as a sales pipeline of A category potential customers or leads which were B or C category, they may not be realistic. So relook at them. It's sometimes good to start from a white sheet again. You have all the knowledge, experience, and you know what not to do. Instead of crying on your past mistakes, look at what can you do differently and accelerate your business to grow back or even higher than what you are today in less than 1 year from now. Look at your payroll costs and other variable costs, and can you defer some of these? Don't cut them, as I said. Try to be compassionate with people. Look at your fixed costs, and can part of this be reduced? Can you defer them? Look at your manpower. Will they be able to come back, and will they be well to work? Are you ready to provide special quality of facilities with sanitized work area in the factory, in the office? And can you give training on hygiene and social distancing? It's always easy to talk about. So I'm now coming to my last slide. Never forget the DNA that you came from, the roots that you came from. We all, and many of us who have seen life in 1960s and 70s, we had nothing. We were all happy. We used to do more with less. Why can't we once again look at building a business from what we were in 60s and 70s and grow back to the business of 2019. Thank you very much. I'm free for question answers.
Thanks a lot, sir. This was indeed quite insightful. And while you were making this presentation and doing this talk, there were a few questions which were parked simultaneously. So if you allow me, I would take them up for you to share your insights on those.
Sure, please go ahead, Abhay.
Yeah, so the first question came from Ms. Praheli, and she wants to understand that how do we, under the present scenario, what would be the threats and opportunity for training and developmental programs in the immediate future?
And one request is when you're answering a question, please identify yourself. Or Abhay, you can just say Praheli is from WBIDC.
Yeah, so Praheli is from WBIDC, West Bengal Industrial Development Corporation, Government of West Bengal. So they engage in various training modules, and IBAC is one of them. So she's trying to understand how we can dovetail with the current situation and see if these kind of training and development programs for enterprises can continue, or what do you see in the immediate future?
Thank you, Abhay. It's a very good question. I missed out on putting training and development as a standalone high growth opportunity. I think everybody would need to unlearn what they have learned and re-look at what needs to be trained. So whether it is people who are middle-aged, they all have to learn new ways of doing business. We have to learn productivity tools. We have to learn collaborative tools. We have to learn new ways of dealing with our employees. And we all have to learn how to do more with less. So, and I would think if you can train people, everyone in life has to first remember that you have to learn to sell. Passion to sell is something that even a factory worker knows how to do it, except they're shy. Passion to sell is something which a finance guy can do it, except they're shy. So selling, everybody is not a leader in selling, but everyone has to learn to sell. So training for selling, training for confidence building exercises, and then wellness, remote wellness coaching is what was required. A lot of people are going through mental trauma. So I would say training and development, both at professional and personal, is a high growth opportunity. Thank you.
So next question was on how do we deal with the outdoor media, and what is the future that you see for it?
I'm not very clear of the question. Outdoor media, is it hoardings or is it?
It's pertaining to what I feel. I mean, this is what the question was posted.
But
so
why don't they ask the question themselves? You can just say that, you know, so and so asked this question.
Ma'am, it will take time to unmute them and mute
Okay.
them.
So maybe you can ask them to develop this question further and email it to me. I'll try and reply.
Sure, we'll take it offline from here. There was one question related to the fact that what do you see as an opportunity for SaaS startups, and who can provide solutions to manufacturing companies in the upcoming months?
A SaaS model always works because people do not want to pay upfront. So, for example, I know organizations who are trying to offer services to MSME in Northeast India for 1 rupee a day. For example, services like where can you go and get your subsidies from Government of India, or where can you get some loans? So that model works. So it depends on what exactly this startup wants to do for manufacturing sector. There's always a need. So I would say keep pivoting, keep dovetailing your need linked service that you're offering. Don't push what you know. Go and ask 100 startups or 100 MSMEs what they need and offer them that SaaS based model.
Okay. The next question was,
Can you ask this question on the leather? That's a huge component of, we are a very important destination for leather goods exports. So there was a question on leather that, the Europe and US markets being absolutely drying up. What is the strategy?
Mosmi, I would say that leather industry will not pick up for the next 1 year. It's going to be a slow process. The reason are many. First, with the situation of what is happening in Europe and North America, people will not look at buying luxury products, and even basic leather products, they will try and delay. So there are other substitutes, including synthetic leather, PU or PVC based. So I would say, let's not look at that as a high growth market. Selectively, you may be able to do business, but it's a survival business.
Yeah, it's a survival. Yes. Thank you.
So the next question was, how do you see digital marketing solution, evolving? And also a subsequent question to the same was to how do we leverage this in terms of getting more customer acquisitions, identifying new potential businesses as well. So what would be the best way to look at the digital marketing solutions?
The easiest way for any company, which is a traditional trading company, retail company, or manufacturing company, is to partner with an organization which specializes in offering digital marketing support and share a part of the revenue. That's the easiest way. Otherwise, it will take you a long time to transform unless you have within your organization smart people who can quickly adapt and spend on even the hardware, payment gateways. So it's easier to look at partnering with 2 or 3 organizations, one which will promote your business on digital marketing, second who will help you to collect the orders, third who may even help you with delivery. 3 come grow 5x in the next 5 months.
Sure, thank you. So the next question in line was specific to 2 sectors. What is the future that you see for furniture manufacturing industry? And the same goes for the handicrafts. How do they stay in business? Because these are, low tech and low sales in terms of volume.
I think handicraft industry is going to see a growth for 2 reasons. One, it is going to be supported by directly from the Ministry of MSME, and it will also be supported to provide help to the rural economy. Some of the handicraft comes from the rural sector. But it needs, again, digital partnering models that we just talked earlier. Coming back to furniture industry, it's going to be slow growth. There is going to be some requirement, but mainly in areas which are not for homes, not for retail outlets, and obviously not for offices. Because now 50% of the offices will so we'll have to be where, so I'm not an expert answer it right now. So it's a slow growth for me right now.
Okay. So another question on specifically to logistics sector. So Mr. Pratik from PSBD wants to understand, how do you perceive the international logistic business as an emerging market within the country and also offshore post-COVID? Is it going to, these SMEs can leverage from the opportunities, if at all?
If you go back to my first thing, everybody market and by partnering. So try and look at strategic alliances, marketing partnerships, technology partnerships with some big logistic players. By the way, there is no such word as post-COVID. We will have to live with COVID. So first and foremost, the reality of life is that COVID is like flu, which will stay. But partnering and individually don't have the reputation, if you don't have the financial muscle, why don't you just make a special vehicle which is partnering 5, 10 mini cluster companies in the logistic and logistic alliances with somebody who is in the export logistic business.
Right. Thank you, sir. Another question was related to the clean energy segment. So Mr. Colonel Dave wants to understand how do you perceive the growth of biomass-based bioenergy sector in India? Does it have a potential to also address farm to factory connect, looking at the entire supply chain? And how would, do you foresee it addressing the SDG as well?
Thing to do with renewable energy is now going to be given special importance. We have all realized that our air, sky, birds, the natural fauna, flora has come back because we don't have vehicles moving, which will start moving anyway, and we don't have pollution from the various other sources that were created. So renewable energy, including standalone rooftop solar panels, bio to energy, bio waste to energy will all have a growth. Now, whether it is farm to factory, I'm not sure. That needs to be looked at. But I think try and look at innovative partnership models. The other day, I was looking at an opportunity. Why can't farmers go and take their entire produce to railway stations and offer it at the railway stations for people to auction and take away from them? So instead of trying to go through middlemen who are taking majority of their profits, or even taking away 100% of the profits.
Right. Another set of questions has come from with the perspective of looking at few another sectors. How would you see their immediate growth or even subsistence? So in terms of garment industry, do you see that they will sail through this particular patch of closer and not manufacturing? How do you see these SMEs, MSMEs who are into the garment textile industry can survive and bounce back to business that they were doing earlier?
So first, I think if you could have pivoted, and you can still pivot, any garment producer could have started making personal protection equipment, which is no different from making a garment. And you don't need to make physical measurement of a person, because mask or personal protection equipment, that is what you're going to wear, gowns, can be slightly bigger or smaller. So there are only 3 sizes: small, mid, and large size. So anybody could have got into that business. But I would still say garment industry is not going to vanish. They'll continue to be there, but there'll be a lot of fighting for margins. So it is going to be declining profit margins. There will be need for people at least to buy the basic clothes, and women will never stop buying. We know that.
So the next question is with respect to specifically to West Bengal. There are lots of companies, SMEs and MSMEs, manufacturing jute and similar kind of products, and they mostly do the job work, or they have been exporting these finished products to offshore markets. What do you see as a survival strategy, and what do you suggest for them?
I don't know what specific end markets they were producing for. Was these jute for artifacts for interior decoration? Were these jute for people to carry like shopping bags? I'm not sure. So if you can identify specific innovative applications of your jute bag, for example, people all over the world stopped using single-use plastic. So they had switched over to paper bags, and then jute bags were also getting popular. So I'm not sure of the application, but I would say there is always possibility to look at pivoting to those applications which will be high growth. So again, I'll have to study some applications, and maybe the person could give me a little education on what they were exporting, and I'll try and help them.
Abhay, Mr. Mutreja, I just wanted to give this example here because this is quite relevant to what has been discussed. Our chairman, Mr. Rudra Chatterjee's company, they are into textiles. And that's exactly, they were massively exporting to US and Europe. Now, off late, they have diverted and, like they're doing a lot of work on the PPEs. And as you said, this is a very good option which the companies here can look at, because constantly I'm getting tenders. You can take help from my colleagues, the IBAC team here, because we are constantly updating the tenders with the government of West Bengal is floating. They have a huge requirement of PPEs. So that's a very good opportunity, which I think you all can get, some more briefing from Sujoy. He has got, I think, the tenders, or my colleagues can send him and inform him. That's exactly what Mr. Mutreja is saying. You'll have to now dovetail your business operations and look at things which are maybe not, in your near horizon. You'll have to kind of improvise and accommodate to that extent. So Sujoy, you can help them with the tenders, because I keep getting these, and Anima in my office has got that. Okay?
Sure, ma'am.
Yeah.
Thank you, ma'am, for that. We'll take some last 2-3 questions, sir. The question was related to, again, a few sector specific. So eyewear retail industry, people have this consumer behavior that they would like to go to the shop, wear, feel, and get their eyes checked up. So it's more to do with how the telemedicines and the engagement of a patient with a doctor has to do. How do you see this particular sector evolving and going forward during the this current COVID stage?
I think it'll slowly and gradually go back to similar as it was earlier. I don't see a problem because you have to go and meet the doctor, but initially you'll do telemedicine, you will get yourself checked, but when physical examination is required, you will have to go. Or if you can get your x-rays done, so you don't go to the doctor, if you can get your ultrasound done, and then you can upload it on and give you some. Ultimately, if it's a serious condition, if you are unwell, you will have to go to the hospital and doctor. Similarly, for your time, women are going to continue happily go for your checkup.
Sure. So another question was related to investment. So, I mean, lots of people have been asking throughout the chat that what do you see government should plan in terms of looking at investment opportunity or some kind of financial assistance that the government could foresee and extend to MSMEs? And there was a specific question from a startup who's also part of IBAC, wanting to understand how do you see this investment landscape shaping up during this entire next, say, 6 months or a year or so?
I think the proactive action has to be taken by state government. It is not going to be by central government. Central government will only facilitate approval processes for any foreign investment or large Indian. So first thing that should be done, and now I'm going back to historical experiences of Chandrababu Naidu in the Andhra Pradesh, and Lalita in state of Tamil Nadu, and we got so many industries set up in the various places in Tamil Nadu and in and around Hyderabad at that time. So I think state of West Bengal under the leadership of Mamata Banerjee and Amit Mitra, they should offer a cluster-based investment opportunity for those sectors where state of West Bengal can play, bring some. So whether it is in or other manufacturing sectors. Food processing industry, ITC is very much there. I mean, just cash on capability to invest, cluster-based approach and bring multiple foreign partners in this. So with all state government approvals at one go. So it's like a single window. See, now I'm going back to 1985, when I was in Kingdom of Bhutan, I was directly also responsible for getting all approvals for any local or foreign companies to set up businesses. So, and we had something similar to what came in India in 1991 as FIPB. We had a single window clearance and I was the head of that too. So it's not something that cannot be done. There's no point reinventing the wheel. Just follow a success story. Osa and Japan following in their places, or Scandinavian countries are following. Just bring cluster of industries, which you already have. I know West Bengal has many clusters.
Right, sir. Thank you. Sir, I'll just take one couple of last questions. So one was with respect to, I know you have touched this point. So specifically looking at MSMEs and SMEs, what do you perceive as a few of these sectors that probably would see growth going forward? So if you can name a few, I mean, lots of people are asking that what is there, how do they grow in the coming future? So if you could throw some light, which sectors catering in which these MSMEs and SMEs are operating have some growth potential going forward?
if you go back to my 2 slides of opportunities and in general, whatever is imports today in India, why can not some of the MSMEs now capture that imports? So whether components, disposables, whether it is food processing industry, which India anyway would need, whether it is packaging industry, whether it is in area of renewable sector, solar panels will continue to sell, whether it is in the area of sanitization products, whether it's chemicals, pharmaceuticals, whether it's providing support on logistics services. So even in manufactured products, I don't see just because some 25, 30 that I have listed there. So every sector has an opportunity. You may have to pivot. You may have to change the direction. You may have to partner. You alone will not be able to thrive in the new world. In the new normal, you have to partner with many people. So it's partnering with FICCI and IBAC as just one. Partner with state partner within a West Bengal, part of your vendors, partnering with other technology players in the rest of the world. So startups or MSMEs have to learn now to, and that's the biggest skill they have to learn, passion to sell your capabilities to partner with others. You know me, Abhay, I always talk partnering all my life.
Yeah. Thank you, sir. So the last question that I would like to take, again, it's cutting across a few sectors, but quite pertinent in terms of the jobs. So people are asking, how do you see, what should be the strategy for tourism, travel, event industry? And also, what do you see, how do you see perceive education sector getting some kind of assistance from the government and grows for the next year or so? So repeating myself again, what should be the strategy for, dovetailing or reinventing for tourism, travel and event industries, those who are in the consultancy? And what should be the support that the government should ensure for the education sector so that they can sail through this tough time?
So first, I think real world tourism and travel will reduce to 10% for personal needs and maybe to 25% for business needs for the rest of this calendar year. It will start growing in 2021. So let's remember that if you cannot survive for next 9 months in your existing tourism service sector, then better to pivot and do something different. If your people have certain skills, they can start doing parallelly businesses and downsize your team to do tourism to 1/4 or 1/10, depending on where you are. Coming back to what else can you do? You can try and look at how do you provide certain personalized entertainment digital facilities through your program. Today, sitting at home, I can show my children or my grandchild places inside Red Fort, which I may have also forgotten. I don't remember when I last saw them. So I can walk in the Meena Bazaar by just looking at it, but all that is available free. Can you make it a little more personalized, interactive? So then you make some money out of it, but again, it was that will pay for the business. So you will have to get out of that business or downsize your team for survival, which is one way to look at it, but use your capabilities to look at other businesses. And coming to education sector, why do you want government subsidize? I think just forget, we have to start living in the world where government will only provide the support that is required for economy, poor people in this country who need support. And they'll provide support to farmers. For MSMEs, they'll only provide you soft loans and not any grant. They may give you longer moratorium period. They may provide you loan without any mortgage. And SIDBI, I understand, is giving up to 50 lakh rupees loan without any mortgage. So you don't even have to have a investment capex shown. You must have some trustworthy. And don't go to organize. See, I think start looking at it. If your business as an SME was worth 1 crore, but if you can find 5 other companies and combine it and make it 6-7 crores, your net worth goes higher. Your ability to get 10 crore loan is easier, and your ability to pivot into new businesses. For example, can you get into organic, high nutrition food ingredients? The market is huge. Can you get into a health insurance business? Can you get certain waste management? Can you get into providing sanitation service? The whole country would need us in your car, whether it is suddenly come up, which was practically not even a few $1 million before. So pivot, change direction, restructure. Just get your mindset changed that you can do it. Just forget the negative attitude.
Thank you, sir. I guess the questions are getting repeated now, and they're more to do with what is the government stand and approach and assistance that they're going to extend to these SMEs and MSMEs. So
I think we'll have to get the government to talk to them.
Yes, ma'am. So I'll leave that for another session, which we might try and do with the government folks to answer those questions. But a big thanks to you, sir, for sparing some time and talking to us, giving us presentation to all of us, and taking us through the entire enriched experience that you have over the past 40 odd years of engaging yourself with companies at different growth stage. So with this, we'll close this session and would request you, we'll get in touch with you one-on-one if there are any other companies who still would like to clarify and get some queries from you. If you allow that, we'll try and put them in touch with you one-on-one.
Most
welcome.
Thank you,
Mr. Mutreja. Thank you.
Thank you. And I would also request you
to
so I'll also request you, all of you guys who are present on the webinar today, to check out our website, ibacwb.in. So we are currently also building the next cohort and to work with SMEs and provide them assistance in terms of capacity building, business strategies, and developing them so that they can deal with the how to get into the market and grow their businesses going forward. So we do have experts like Mr. Mutreja also mentoring a few companies there. So we request you, if you're interested, get on the website and reach out to us, and do apply to the program if you find it interesting and worthwhile. Thank you. Thanks a lot, everybody. Stay safe. And that's all from us. A big thanks to Mr. Mutreja.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.